Oh no, this is really bad news. November 1st, and the mice are already back. So anybody that's thinking about getting a minivan to convert, doesn't have to be a Toyota, of course, or any vehicle for that matter. The number one issue that I have is mice. Mice love it since I've turned it into a camper. And, I've added various things to make it more comfortable. The mice have tried to move in. Killed 2 inside of it last winter, and it's November 1st today. And I don't know when he got in, but I'm seeing evidence that the mouse is already moving in for the winter. It's going to be bad. Absolutely drives me crazy. I don't know if I have a mouse problem or a cat problem, but I do have a problem. So, went on a road trip. Got everything ready. Spent a lot of time working on the van this summer, and was finally able to pull out on September 17th and did a 2-week road trip out west. I thought about doing travel videos, for each leg of the trip, but I think I'll just kind of put a bit of a montage at the end of the video. So if you want to see, what it looked like on the road, stick around to the end, and I'll show you. I'll keep it relatively short, but I'll put in some short clips of places I went and some of the things I did out west. But I think most people want to just know, what it's like to spend time in a minivan on the road. So my 2013 Toyota Sienna Mini-Van, if you've already seen any of my videos, you kind of have a feel for what I've done to it. I've done the Journey's 3.5-inch lift, and took out the back seats, even the rear fold down seat, took all that out. Built a platform. It's got storage, 4 storage doors underneath. I'm not going to show all that right now. You can look at previous videos if you care to see that. This is going to be just kind of a drive report or trip report, if you will. So again, I left on September 17th, and the van, when I left, had right around 178,000 miles on it. So it's again 2013, so 12 years old, 175,000, let's call it, miles. So it's not a new van, not even close. Did I have any apprehension about leaving on a trip with a van, this many miles, this old? Not really. Before I left, I did do some maintenance. I put a new alternator on it. I installed a Bluetti DC to DC 1 charger, which I'll talk about, how it performed in a minute. But I knew that was going to tax the alternator, which was the original alternator. It wasn't doing anything wrong. It wasn't making any noise. So I was really apprehensive about, should I replace a part that seems to work fine? But I was hearing some noise, and it kind of worried me. So I went ahead and replaced the alternator here in the driveway. Not that big of a job. Well, a couple of the bolts are hard to get to, but not really a terribly difficult job. Little caveat to that, I did make one mistake, which I'll get to in a minute. Then other than that, just rotated the tires, had the wheels balanced. After I got the alternator replaced, everything's working fine, but I still heard, I was hearing a slight bearing noise, and I was confident that it was coming from the alternator. So I replaced it, and that wasn't the noise. It ended up being a water pump. Water pump had reached the end of its lifespan, and I did take that to a dealer, a local dealer here in Southern Ohio, to get it replaced, because in the Toyota minivan, it's kind of hard to get to. You have to loosen the engine mounts and raise the engine a little bit to be able to get to the water pump, and I just didn't want to fool with it. So I went ahead and took it to a dealer, Toyota dealer, replaced the water pump, did a coolant system flush, new accessory belt. So coolant system should have been, good to go, perfect. Also had the transmission flushed. It was original transmission fluid. 175,000 miles. You're kind of at that point where, like, do I change it at this point and risk anything going wrong? Because some people are always a little apprehensive about taking your car or truck to a dealer to get the transmission flushed, because it does use, I think, some heat and a little bit of pressure to flush it out. They assured me it would be fine, and it was. No worries about that. So I think I had everything covered. I'm pretty confident that, you know, the van was going to be reliable for the trip out. So set sail, like I said, September 17th, and headed from Southern Ohio up to Northern Indiana. Not typically a destination for a lot of people, but there is a national park up there, Indiana Dunes National Park. It's right on the seashore of Lake Michigan, and it's a worthy stop. I've never been up there before, so I did enjoy, you know, that starting the journey with a, you know, a 6 to 7 hour trip, and then spending a night and relaxing a little bit, versus just normally what I do is just take off and bust it out west as fast as I can. So I kind of slow rolled it this time. After I left Indiana, got on a lot of 2-lane highways if I could, and made my way over to just north of Dubuque, Iowa, and stayed at a small campground right on the shores of the Mississippi River, which was just, you know, beautiful. Ended up being a beautiful night, beautiful morning. From there, I made my way over across Iowa from east to west on a 2-lane highway. Beautiful, really underrated state just for its, you know, state of natural beauty, friendly people. All the way up to the northwest corner of Iowa, and then went into South Dakota, Sioux City, up to Sioux Falls, and then over towards Rapid City, Sturgis. Beautiful, beautiful country. It's probably cracked my top 5 places, to be honest with you. Northwestern South Dakota. Made my way into northeastern Wyoming, Devil's Tower, and man, Devil's Tower. Second time I've been there, but it's been about 30 years or so since I've been out there, and just fell in love with it again. Absolutely 1000% stunning place to go. Made my way down to, I can't remember the number of the highway. That's a scenic, I've got it written down actually. What was it? It was Highway 16. It's either 16 south or west in Wyoming. And it's a 2-lane highway that winds its way through the mountains, and eventually, you know, you're headed towards the Grand Tetons and Yellowstone, the scenic route. Now, I didn't want to stay on the interstate. You know how boring they could be. And oh my gosh, I didn't realize it, but that was called the Cloud Peak Skyway, and just stunning. The whole drive was just absolutely amazing. Made my way over to a little town called Thermopolis, which I'd never heard of. Thermopolis, Wyoming. Sounded like something out of a Batman movie, Thermopolis. I think it billed itself as, it's a state park, or there is a state park there. It may just be called Hot Springs State Park. I think they said it may be the largest hot springs in America, if not the world, and it was free. You could go in. They had this kind of like a YMCA type building, but they had, you know, indoor pools, an indoor pool with a hot spring, and they had outdoor pool with a hot spring, all free. Amazing, absolutely amazing. From there, I continued south and went through the Wind River Canyon. Wow, absolutely spectacular. Part of the Wind River Native American Reservation. And then spent the night in Riverton. I know I'm probably jibber-jabbering here too much. Ended up going to the Grand Tetons, and then made my way back down south through Wyoming into Colorado. Spent a couple nights before heading home. So about 2 weeks in total. Van, even with this many miles, perform, I'll say, flawlessly, except for I did have an overheating issue, which I was disappointed / a little bit upset, but disappointed, because I had taken it to the dealer to get all that, you know, the water pump replaced and the coolant system flushed, and they assured me, you know, it's going to be good to go. And on day 2, I overheated. After I left Indiana Dunes National Park, I was either going to go around Chicago or go right downtown Chicago. And it was thinking it was a Friday morning, if I remember right. The Thursday morning or a Friday morning. And I got up early, so thinking, well, there won't be that much traffic yet. And so I was setting sail for Chicago, and it was, you know, everything was going to plan. Got on a toll road and just smooth sailing. I could see the downtown area, and downtown Chicago is amazing, by the way. You control right around the Lake Michigan waterfront. It is beautiful. But then the tollway ended and the interstate merged, and then it was just traffic, just slammed with traffic. About 8 lanes, you just inch it along. Really wasn't that hot. It was, I think, about 80 degrees. And I just happened to look down and my temperature gauge was just climbing up and right below red, and there's nowhere to go. I mean, there's nothing I could do. You can't just stop in the middle of that. I guess you could, but it's going to create a mess of unbelievable proportions. There wasn't really a safe place on the side of the road to pull over, and I was just like, please. And then next thing you know, I saw an exit for Chinatown. Had no clue what was going to be there, but I kind of whipped it over, got off on the exit, and luckily it was like, exit and 1 block, and there was in Chicago places to park on the side of the street in the shade. So I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. So got out, popped the hood, let the van cool down, and noticed that a lot of the fluid had transferred from the radiator to the overflow container. And like, well, that's not good. That coolant, it's not supposed to overflow if everything's working properly. So let it cool down. Yes, if you wait long enough, it'll siphon itself back into the radiator, but I really didn't want to wait that long. So I got some water out of the van, always carried some extra water, topped it off. When I opened the radiator cap, a lot of pressure release, of course. I didn't open it, was perfectly hot, but it was, warm. And I was thinking, when you change the coolant in a Sienna, actually on a 3.5 2GR Toyota engine, there's a special procedure they have to go through to bleed air out of the system, not like most cars. Not really that difficult, but they assured me when I went to pick it up, they were just finishing up the bleeding, so I was confident that they did it. But after it overheated, I'm thinking maybe there's still a little bit of air in the system. So when I opened the cap, a lot of air pressure vented off, and then I put some water on it, and I went ahead and took off to get out of the city as fast as I could, and it was not a pleasant experience. I was thinking, since it was in the morning, the majority of people would be coming into town, but there were just as many people, exiting the city, massive amounts of traffic. And I'm just glued, stressed out, glued to the temperature gauge, and it was holding steady. But I was moving slowly, but I was moving the entire way. And it seemed to have solved everything. So at that point I was thinking, I'm about 6.5 hours, 8 hours from home. If I turn around, bust it, I can go home and check everything out. But I'm like, you know what? We'll figure out what happens. I do carry a lot of tools when I travel. Too many, to be honest with you. Carried a lot of extra weight in the back of the van. But I was, reasonably confident that if something happened, I could, manage it and then, get to a mechanic or somewhere on the road to get the problem solved. But didn't have any more issues. So went ahead and took off and made my way out west. Again, I'll put some of the places I went in picture form or video form at the end of the video. But eventually I made my way down through western Wyoming, south into Colorado. And I did have another casualty there. Took 5 shots to the windshield from gravel trucks on a Colorado highway. What are the chances? Every single time I pass one of these trucks, I was getting slammed. I also hit a massive bird in Kansas on the way home, right in front of my head, which was pretty chilling. I'll show you the crack in a minute. It's a good one. After spending the night in a national forest in Colorado, got up the next morning and wanted to go to Colorado National Monument. If you're not sure what that is, it's more or less in Grand Junction or right outside of Grand Junction. And it's the Colorado Monument is this massive, massive plateau. I can't remember the height, but it's about 1,000 feet, I'm going to say, above the plains. And it's ridiculously stunning. It's kind of like a little bit of Moab and Arches and Canyonlands. In fact, it looks exactly like it if you've been to those areas, the really beautiful rock formations and canyon views and that kind of thing. And there was one time, because once you get into there, you know, you're climbing up higher elevation, which the engine's losing power. The higher you go up in elevation, you know, you're less oxygen, so you have to work your engine a little harder. So I'm watching my temperature gauge, and one point it fluctuates a little bit, and I'm like, no. But then it drops back down and didn't have any issues. When I was leaving the monument, I was looking for a place to camp, and I use Campendium, by the way. I'll talk a little more about that in a little bit. Campendium app, it works really, really well. I know there are other apps out there for camping as well, but I use Campendium. So I found this spot in National Forest land on top of the monument, and I was making my way to it. And then, you know, the chip and seal road was fine. Then it turned to gravel, and then it turned windy, and then it turned like steep switchbacks. And it was probably about 82 or 83 degrees, so not, you know, super, super hot. And then all of a sudden, like, my dash just lights up, warning lights, boom, boom, boom. Looked at the temperature gauge, and it actually did hit the red. And I whipped it over as fast as I could. Luckily, there was on a switchback, there was a wide area, so I could pull over, pop the hood, and my engine, the radiator just boiling. It's one of those points where, like, it's so dangerous that you just have to open the hood and just walk away. And so that's what I did. Spent about 45 minutes just, you know, worrying, because I knew, like, I hadn't fixed or solved the problem in Chicago. It was more than just air in the system. Some guy in a truck came off the hill, and a couple of nice people, you know, stopped to see if I needed any help, and to, you know, which was really, really cool. Talk more about that in a second as well. Asked him, you know, how far the campground was, and he says, well, it's a little bit longer than you think. It's about, you know, another, I can't remember what he said, 8 or 9 miles up this kind of road. I'm like, well, there's no way I'm going to make it to there with the van condition, being in the condition it was in. So I went ahead and headed back down after I cooled it off. Put some more water in the radiator, just topped it off, and headed back down. And as I was heading down, moving constantly, 0 issues. Temperature gauge held perfectly steady. So made my way to Grand Junction, ended up spending the night in a Cabela's parking lot. Really, really thankful for companies like that, Cabela's, Bass Pro Shops, Walmarts, etc., that allow you to, you know, spend the night overnight in their parking lot. There's probably about 12 other rigs out in the parking lot as well. So in these kind of situations, you always feel kind of safe. Got up next morning, you know, checked the radiator. It's still, you know, where it needs to be. It had sucked the coolant back into it. And at that point, like, I have to start heading east. My trip was kind of more or less over. I did want to do a couple more things in Colorado, and I was thinking about going to New Mexico and down into southern Utah to do some UFO hunting. I know it sounds weird, but it fascinates me. But I decided to, with the overheating issue, I'm like, you know what, let's just go ahead and slow roll back, because I knew I was going to have to cross another big mountain pass. And I didn't, at that point, I wasn't confident that I could do it in the van. So headed back east on Route 50, and you have to go over one of the passes. So I was going to choose Monarch Pass. Can't remember what the day is at this point, but it's a weekday. So a lot of traffic, a lot of truck traffic. And I've been over Monarch Pass, you know, a few times, and it's a pretty long pass. It's not one of the more intense, super high elevation passes. I think it goes up to about 10,000 feet. A couple of the spots, you know, there's places to pull over, but you're right on the edge. And then with the amount of traffic, I'm like, you know what, that's not a good idea. So I went ahead and peeled off and headed down towards Lake City. There's another big pass there. Can't remember the name of the pass. It's kind of an odd name, just south of Lake City. So I stopped in Lake City, let the van cool down. It wasn't even a hot day. It was a little bit overcast and rainy, which was perfect, I thought. It was, and I knew as I climbed, it was going to get cooler. So I went ahead and took up off the pass, and this pass, it's really tight, a lot of switchbacks. And I made it about 4/5 the way up the pass, and temperature gauge shot up again. Luckily, I could pull over instantly, let the van cool down again. Took about 45 minutes or an hour. And at this point, I'm frustrated. You know, I don't know what to do. But I knew the pass was going to be the biggest challenge. So cooled down, made it up top of the pass, down into Creed, and then spent the night in a little campground alongside the Rio Grande River. And at that point, I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to have to go home. So anyway, that's what I did. I was able to make it home, and at that point, I'm about 1,500 miles away from home. The temperature gauge was perfect all the way home. Of course, I was moving. I didn't have to go up any more high elevation passes. Temperature never got above 85 or so. One place I did avoid coming across Missouri on Interstate 70. I did not want to go through St. Louis because St. Louis can be a nightmare through the week especially. So actually, right before I got to St. Louis, I exited and took a highway north, and then came back across, farmland in Illinois and Indiana, and no issues whatsoever with my thermostat, temperature, van. So in terms of reliability, the van engine performance was flawless, minus the overheating issue. So I let it set a few days, and then finally I like, you know what, I'm going to go out and just start investigating to see if the fans actually work. So kind of show you what I did. Radiator here, the fans. So what I did was I pulled these two plugs on the fan and ran a jumper wire from the battery terminal down to the fans, and as soon as I touched the fans, both came on. So at that point, I know it's not a fan issue. Radiator had been flushed, refilled, so I'm assuming all that was working the way it was supposed to. And I started doing Google search about things that can go wrong, and I saw that some people have issues with what's it called, the temperature control module, thermostat control module, fan control I think it's called the fan control module. And that little guy is right here, this guy right here. So I want to make sure I ordered the right parts. So I stuck my camera down here just like this to take a picture. And then when I looked at the picture, found the part number, and I was getting ready to order it. And one last double check to make sure I was ordering the right part. And I noticed that this plug was not connected. I could see the prongs on the module itself. And this was not the dealer's fault. This was my fault. Whenever you replace the alternator, which is right here, you have to remove all of this. You got to pull the fans. And in order to pull the fans, you got to disconnect the wires. And since I was disconnecting things, I took that wire and I actually put it over here out of the way. And when I put everything back together, I apparently did not reconnect that lead on the fan control module. So, long story short, the only issues I had on the trip were self-induced, operator error, if you will. After I replaced the alternator, got everything back together, I drove the van around for a couple weeks and everything was working fine. But as I was driving, I was always moving. I even did a little bit of towing with it and didn't have any issues, but I was never stuck in traffic, and I certainly wasn't, in high elevations, really pushing the van's motor for power. So, if I had connected it like I should have, I would have had zero issues with the van. 5,000 mile trip. Lots of mountain passes, and I think it's pretty impressive, to be honest with you. 180 plus thousand miles on a 2013 model and not to have any issues. So would I recommend a minivan for camping? Specifically, would I recommend a Toyota? Yes, 100%, absolutely. one more thing, a few more things actually. Overall, the experience of camping in the van, I took my dog this time. The minivan is absolutely 100% perfect for one person, in this case, and one person and a dog. My girlfriend and I have done some traveling together in it, some camping in it as well. And, you know, I'll say it's good for two people. I would say it's really good for two people and a dog on a shorter trip, on a weekend trip, maybe even pushing it out to 3 or 4 days. On a longer excursion, you know, 2-3 weeks, I was planning on spending about a month out west before I had the issue. But for that, I think the minivan with two people and a dog, or two people and, you know, a child, it may be pushing the limits of comfort. I'm not saying it can't be done. I'm sure a lot of people out there, you know, do it. But in terms of efficiency and being, you know, quick setup, quick tear down from camping spots, accessing, you know, clothes, sundries, that kind of thing, there's a lot of finagling. You have to put things from the van in front seats, or from the beds area in the front seats when you want to go to sleep and that kind of thing. So, yeah, so the minivan, I love it. I highly recommend it. But it does have limitations. So that's the deal with every rig you can think of. You got to weigh, you know, the amount of money you want to spend, I guess, number one, but then, you know, how much comfort and accessibility, you know, what's the range? And when I mean accessibility, like, you know, places you want to go. For me, like a big RV is kind of out of the question, because I do like to jump on national forest roads, dirt roads, gravel roads, some off the beaten path places. And the minivan with the 3.5-inch Journeys lift, again, it's not a rock crawler, it's not a Jeep or a, you know, a 4Runner or something like that, but it does raise it up high enough that you can get through some creek washouts and that kind of thing. And so it actually absolutely works perfectly for that. Places that, you know, a larger RV, I just wouldn't be able to go without tearing something up for sure. So highly recommend minivan. I do like the Journeys lift. Is the Journeys lift necessary? I would say no. You just have to be a little bit more choosy on, you know, if you're going to go off road, on, you know, where you can stay. But in terms of just driving, you know, day-to-day driving, the Journeys lift doesn't really do anything for you. Again, I did check mileage on the way out. Some people may be interested in that. I got about, believe it or not, I got almost 22 miles per gallon for the duration of the trip. And that's 2-lane highways, country roads, interstate travel, mountain passes, and Forest Service roads. When I got on the interstate, I didn't really push it above 70. Number one, I'm just not in that much of a hurry. Number two, I like to be a little more safer, especially if I'm, you know, traveling for a long period of time. You get a little bit road weary, so that does help mileage. MPGs for sure, if you keep it, you know, under 70. I was impressed. I was blown away. I thought I would be lucky to get 19 or 20, because I had the van too heavy. I packed too much stuff. Something I have to deal with in the future. I overly prepared for most things. I know this, like, you know, when you're traveling, you can always, there's always places to stop, Walmart's, dollar stores. So I overpacked. Nothing more to say about that. The Bluetti DC to DC alternator charger, I would have to say I am a huge fan of this thing right now. So if you've never seen my channel before, I do run a refrigerator. I have a 12-volt fan, two of them actually. I use a larger one, and then I have a smaller one back here. I find it really difficult to sleep without a fan. I love the air movement, even when it's cold. And of course I ran, you know, lights, you know, in the evening, and recharge my phone and iPad and that kind of thing. Cameras. The Bluetti AC 180 is, I'm not going to get into, you know, it's the best one out there, but it did work, you know, extremely well in this situation. I did have a video where I showed you where I put my DC charger, put it down here, and it worked flawlessly. Now I still have my solar panel on top. But honestly, I didn't need it at all. So I was a little bit concerned about the DC charger overtaxing the charging system. Another reason why I replaced the alternator, to make sure everything was, in as good a shape as it could be in. Mounted a switch for the charger right here by the driver's seat, and then I mounted the switch by the driver's seat so I could access it, on the move. And I downloaded the Bluetti app. The app's really, really useful, to be honest with you. I could set it up and check the state of the battery, because it's in the back. I can't see it from the driver's seat. Turn on the app and you can see, how much charge the unit has, how many watts it's putting out, running accessories, and also how many watts are coming in to charge it. So I didn't charge it all the time. I didn't think it would be safe just to leave the charger, the breaker for the charger on all the time, even though it's supposed to self-modulate, kick on and off when it needs to. I just kind of, cycled it myself, tried to anyway. So when the battery got down to about, 50%, I would, flip on the charger, and it charges so much faster than solar. I've got a 250 watt panel on top, and I don't think I have ever seen more than like 160 watts in perfect conditions coming into it. Just, the angle, it gets a little dirty on top, road film, especially if it's, you get dusty and then it rains and it gets kind of a film on it. And it's hard to clean on top, and you don't want to clean it all the time. I didn't want to clean it all the time, so I would just use the charger. Anyway, there were more than a few times when I had intended to turn the charger off before I turned the van off, just to let everything kind of, in my head, I thought maybe it would be more reliable if I let the alternator, cool down a little bit before I shut it off. But I don't know how many times I forgot to turn that breaker off, and turn the engine off, turn the engine on, breaker's on, goes to max charge, 100%. So the breaker, not the breaker, but the DC charger turns itself off. So it's not putting watts and going to overcharge it or anything like that. It worked flawlessly, and no issues with it whatsoever. Not affiliated with Bluetti in any way, but I highly recommend an alternator charger. In this case, I used the Bluetti because I found it on Amazon on special, as I have it in another video. In fact, I'm so confident in it that if I'm doing another build, I may even take my solar panel off of this van and just go with, I've got a set of flexible, collapsible solar panels that I got with the Jackery power station that I have. And I can tuck those away somewhere where they're kind of out of sight, out of mind, unless I need them. Just to lighten the load on top. And I get a little bit of wind noise up top. Not awful, but I do get some wind noise. It's kind of irritating once in a while. Honestly, like for the most part, you don't even need a solar panel if you've got the DC charger. Yeah, especially if you're on the move. If you're going to a campground, you're going to spend, a week there and not move, then you're going to need some kind of solar charging system. But in my case, like I was never in a rush, but I wanted to travel. I wanted to see things I'd never seen before. So if I spend a night, wherever, the next morning, kind of slow roll, get ready, and then take off. So I was never in one spot for more than one night. So highly, highly recommend the DC charger. One van casualty, and I didn't know this until I got back. Aside from the massive crack in my windshield, which I'll go ahead and show you. Yeah, this guy right here. So I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rock chips on this trip. And I had a massive bird slam into me right here. Luckily, I thought for sure it was going to bust the windshield, but nothing happened. So the only mechanical, we'll call it casualty, which casualty doesn't mean it's dead, just means it's wounded. My casualty was my front driver's side axle boot started leaking, and I didn't know that until I got back. I was actually checking my brakes just to make sure everything was okay after the trip. Mountain passes can be really, really hard on brakes. And then I noticed some grease splatter by the inner boot of my driver's side axle. It's not clicking, the joint's not torn up yet, but that boot did let loose, which 184,000 miles now, so that's not bad. They are the original factory boots, axles. So I will change that before I go on another trip, but that was the only casualty I had, man. Traveling on a budget in a minivan. My budget for the trip, I didn't want to spend a ton of money, obviously. That's why we build vans like this, so we can save money on camping, campgrounds, hotels, that kind of thing. I kept track of all my gas expenditures, all my food expenditures, etc. Campgrounds, I did pay for some campgrounds, like national forests. Some of the national forests in some states like Colorado, you have to pay the veteran, so you get a discount like $14 at one, $10 at one. So not too bad at all. Wow, shout out to Wyoming. Outside of Grand Tetons National Park on the way back southeast, I stayed in Falls Campground. It's a national forest campground called the Falls Campground. It's right off Highway 28. It was beautiful, like almost 50 spots. The vault toilets were immaculate. The campground was immaculate. You can stay there for 16 days and $0. Absolutely phenomenal. So shout out to Wyoming. Wyoming is now overtaken, for me anyway, my list varies from time to time. Wyoming is now number one. The absolute natural beauty, far less people than some of my favorite areas in Utah and Colorado. Wyoming, spectacular. It's going to be my number one target on my next trip, hopefully next summer. I only spent about $1,100 for 2 weeks. It's one person, one dog, 5,000 miles, almost 5,000 miles, just a little over $1,100. I typically don't stop and eat out. I don't do fast food. So I would just, like, I stocked up before I went. I didn't count that money. Lunch meat, buns, peanut butter and jelly, Nutri-Grain snack bars, that kind of thing. Waters. I didn't buy any food for like 4 or 5 days. I didn't buy anything. And then eventually when I made my way into Colorado, I stopped at another Walmart and resupplied like $60 or so for a restock. So I'll say $150 on food for the entire trip. I think on 3 occasions I saw signs outside in small towns for, the world's best hamburger. So if I see a sign for world's best hamburger, I'm typically going to stop and try it out. But I only get the burger. I don't buy a drink. I normally don't get fries. I just get the burger and, eat chips or something out of the van. So, man, that's not bad. $1,100. If I could have stayed a month easily and probably would have only spent another $500 because I was already out west in a location I wanted to be. Wouldn't have spent a whole lot more money on gas. Had plenty of food. So, man, in terms of traveling, wow, it's hard to beat. I'm fascinated by van life. Some of you probably watched, Bob Wells, the OG, in his van life videos. But I get it, man. I get the attraction to van life and why people sell their homes, sell everything, buy a minivan or your car, and just hit the road. And you don't have to have this mentality like, this is going to be forever. It can be for as long as you want. 6 months, a year, 5 years. I will say that I had a little bit of, since I've been back, I've experienced a little bit of, we'll call it road depression. Like, I want to be back out on the road. Yeah, so the thought of selling, I've already told my neighbor that, I'm willing to sell my home and property to him. My neighbor down the road, he's a great guy, and he's got his daughter lives on the back of the hill from me, and give them first shot. but I do plan on selling my house. I've got another acre, which I'm going to drop off the van life videos starting next month probably, and do my off-grid cabin. So if you're interested in, you know, off-grid living, I'm going to build a small off-grid cabin. So that's my plan. Sell my house, sell my property. I'm just tired of taking care of it. Like everything I do now, I'm seeing it as time. It's not money. It's time that I could be spending doing something else, which I want to do right now, which is, you know, travel and see as much as I can. So much fun, so rewarding. So anyway, I'm going to be starting my off-grid cabin series, hopefully soon. My girlfriend and I went on another trip just a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago. Yeah, 2 weeks ago. From here in Ohio, we loaded up and we went east this time. And this ended up being over a 1,000-mile road trip as well. So combined, I've got about 5,500 travel miles on the van this summer. The second leg of the trip, the eastern trip, 0 issues. Nothing went wrong at all. No overheating, nothing. From here, we went over through West Virginia, one of the more underrated states in America. West Virginia, Pennsylvania. Oh my gosh, just stunningly beautiful states. I forget it sometimes. I get so fixated on the West that I forget how beautiful the eastern half of America really is. But we went through West Virginia, made our way to Morgantown, and then from Morgantown up to Gettysburg, which is probably my favorite small town in America. The history of the Civil War, the battlefield, the vibe that little town has. It's amazing. From Gettysburg, we went down through Virginia down to Richmond. Stayed, on this trip, we didn't camp. We were going to camp, but we ended up staying in, I booked 3 historic hotels. The Farnsworth House in Gettysburg. We did a little ghost hunting. And then the Linden Row House in Richmond, which is, I believe, where Edgar Allan Poe spent some of his childhood. His mother died there. More ghost hunting. And then we spent, in Morgantown, we stayed at, what was it called? The Morgan, I believe. Really old hotel, beautiful. And then came back through Virginia through Appomattox Courthouse, where this General Lee surrendered to General Grant. And then through the Shenandoah Mountains in Virginia, and oh my gosh, just absolutely beautiful, and close to here as well. So next summer, we're going to spend some more time in that part of the country for sure. But 0 issues. I think that just about wraps up all my jibber jabbering. Oh, Campendium. I mentioned Campendium. I just have the free version. I do have an account on the free version, which unlocks a few things, but if you're not familiar with that, you can just download the app, and you can set the range of like how much money you want to spend overnight, and it's all camping. It's not hotels, but it'll give you like all the places in that general area, a radius, if you will, that you set of places you can stay. So what I would do is usually like the day before I would leave or the night before, I would start looking at Campendium about, you know, kind of a general target of places I could stay. And I typically set the range from like $30 and down. But man, there were so many places, and more on the eastern half of America than I thought. But when you get out west, it's almost limitless. There's so much national forest land and campgrounds that you can find. And all the campgrounds I went to had spaces. That can be an issue if you're in the peak summer travel season, but one of the reasons I wanted to travel in September and October is there's far fewer people. Grand Tetons National Park, first time I'd been there, and there was no issues with traffic whatsoever. I won't say there weren't people there. There were a lot of people there, but not like summer season. It was like free range of anywhere you wanted to go. So yeah, with that being said, I think that's about it for this video. Like, if you're thinking about getting a vehicle to do some traveling like this, highly recommend a minivan to start with. You don't have to get a new one. I bought this used. I've had it for I think 4 years now. I bought it with 150 258,000 miles on it, I think. My previous vehicle was a Sequoia. This is still one of my favorite all-time vehicles. However, this particular Sequoia is completely useless now. The frame has disintegrated, so it's not safe to use. I'm going to scrap it. The van is better than a Sequoia for spending the night in. Much, much roomier. Another positive about the van is it's really, really easy to get into, especially if you have a dog. You know, my dog's a little bit older and she can jump up, you know, no problem. In the Sequoia with a lift kit, much harder to get in and out of, for me as well. You know, late night, if you have to get up and use the bathroom or something, it's more awkward to get out of an SUV than it is a minivan. Hands down, minivan wins that battle. Positive about the Sequoia is it can go a little more, you know, obviously can go a lot more places that are more rugged. I would go with a minivan 10 out of 10 times versus a high lift SUV, especially at my age with my dog. I'm 57 now, so getting in and out of something is a huge deal. Only vehicle I would trade my minivan for right now would be for a bigger van, like a Ford Transit, a Ram ProMaster, like the Mercedes Sprinter type. But I'm really hoping that I can continue to use this van. I want to get at least 250,000, if not 300,000 miles on it before I trade it out for something new. But when I do trade it out, my target would be one of the larger vans, just to have more room. I know I'm just a tick under 6'3", and if I get, you know, bustling around the van and I'm leaning in, like, I don't know how many times I hit my head here. But yeah, so I'll wrap this video up with a video montage if you want to see some of the places I went. And so anyway, thanks for watching.